Hello, my lovely friends. It's Emma here, just a girl who loves Elvis. And welcome to a quiet Sunday moment together. I've always felt Sundays have a different feeling to them. The world seems to slow down just a little. The noise of the week softens. And even if life is busy, there's usually a small pocket of calm somewhere in the day. So I thought, on Sundays, maybe we could sit together for a while and talk about the softer, deeper, more spiritual side of Elvis. No drama. No debates, no defending, no noise. Just a gentle reflection, almost like a quiet visit with friends. Maybe you're listening with a cup of tea. Maybe you've just woken up. Maybe the house is still and peaceful. And if we were all sitting together and there was music playing softly in the background, I don't think it would be rock and roll today. I think it would be gospel. Because if you really want to understand Elvis Presley, not just the icon, not just a performer, not just a king, but the man, you have to understand what gospel meant to him. Because gospel wasn't just something he recorded, it was something he carried in his heart. Long before the bright lights, long before the screaming crowds, long before the jumpsuits and the big stages, there was just a little boy in Tupelo, Mississippi. No fame, no fortune, no luxury. Just a tiny two-room house, two loving parents, and a simple, humble life. But what that little house didn't have in money, it made up for in warmth and faith and love. And one of the biggest parts of that life was the church. Not a stiff, formal place, but a southern church full of feeling. People clapped, they sang with their whole hearts, they swayed, they cried, they rejoiced. It wasn't about perfection. It was about emotion. And sitting there in the middle of it all was young Elvis, listening, watching, feeling every single note. And I often imagine what it must have felt like for him. The sound of the voices rising together, the rhythm of hands clapping, the warmth of people singing from the heart. That kind of music doesn't pass through you. It stays. And for Elvis, it stayed for life. Before rock and roll, before the radio hits, before some records, the first music Elvis ever truly loved was gospel. It was the music in his home, the music in his church, the music his mother listened to. And we all know how deeply he loved his mother. She was his comfort, his safe place, his world. So those songs weren't just songs to him. They were love. They were warm. They were home. And I think that's why gospel music never left him. Because no matter how big his life became, no matter how loud the world got around him, those songs always took him back to somewhere quiet and safe. From the outside, fame can look beautiful. Bright lights, crowds, applause, success. But inside, it can be very heavy. And Elvis carried more pressure than most people could ever imagine. He wasn't just a singer. He was a symbol, a phenomenon, a cultural revolution. Every move he made was watched. Every word was analysed. Every performance had to be bigger than the last. And when the noise of the world got too loud, he turned to gospel. Not for applause, not for money, but for comfort. Because gospel reminded him who he was before the world started watching. There are so many stories about Elvis and the late-night gospel sessions. No stage, no cameras, no audience. Just Elvis and a few close friends around a piano. Sometimes in a hotel room, sometimes at Graceland, sometimes backstage after a show. And they would sing for hours, not for practice, not for performance, just because it felt good, just because it felt right. And in those moments, he wasn't the king. He was just Elvis, a man singing the music that lived in his heart. Elvis was always searching. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He didn't act like he had all the answers. He read spiritual books. He talked to ministers. He explored different beliefs. He asked questions, deep questions, about life, about purpose, about the soul. He wasn't just a superstar. He was a seeker, and I think that makes him very human. Because most of us are searching too. Elvis won 3 Grammy Awards, but not for rock and roll, not for his biggest hits. All 3 were for gospel recordings. And I think that says something very important. The world called him the king of rock and roll, but the music that meant the most to him was gospel. The music of his childhood, the music of his faith, the music of his heart. When you listen to How Great Thou Art, it doesn't feel like a performance. It feels like a prayer. There's humility in his voice. There's sincerity. There's reverence. He isn't showing off. He's feeling every word. And that's something you can't fake. Sundays have a softness to them, a quietness. And maybe that's why gospel fits Sundays so beautifully. It gives us space to breathe, space to reflect, space to feel grateful. And Elvis carried that feeling with him his whole life. So if you ever want to understand him, really understand him, listen to his gospel music, because that's where his heart truly lived. So thank you for spending this quiet Sunday moment with me, my lovely friends. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep a little Elvis magic in your hearts. I'll see you again soon.